Welcome to Tony at 12. I'm Tony LeBlanc, and today I'm in conversation with James Hawkesford, Managing Director of the Hawkesford Estate Agency on Alderney. We're going to review the Alderney property market, and James is going to tell us a few secrets, perhaps. I don't know. Good to see you.
And you, Tony. Thank you for inviting me on.
My pleasure. First of all, it's pretty easy to come and live here, isn't it?
Compared to the other islands, certainly yes, and that's its beauty. Literally, anybody, well, within reason, anybody can go across and live there, which is, I think, a huge plus for you guys there.
I think there used to be certain exceptions if you were deemed to be an alien, for example, a citizen of the US. You had to make a special application, but apart from that, anyone in the UK, EU, etc., can just roll up.
Yeah, which is fantastic. You know, the other islands, there's huge barriers,
Mm,
mostly of to how wealthy you are.
yeah,
But no, the fact that anybody can from the UK and most, as you say, most of Europe come and live there, I think is a massive plus. And long may that continue,
yeah,
in my
absolutely.
opinion. Anyway, in my opinion.
Now, we're obviously going to paint this full of lovely roses and everything else. But having said that, currently we do have a little bit of a problem with connectivity, particularly the air service. Hopefully, things are going to happen to sort that out. But do you see that as a bit of a setback?
Yeah, I mean, look. I don't live there. Okay, you guys are far luckier than I, and you live in this fantastic place. Behind me is the Justice Centre in Lemon. You know, I look out onto buildings in the and I would live there in a flash. Okay, but you know where my family is right now isn't going. That's not going to happen for some time. But no, the connectivity is, in my opinion, essential. And I think it's been going on, and everybody's been talking about the same things for as long as I can remember. But I don't remember it being as bad as it is now. And that is certainly having an effect on people's ability and their desire to live there. Now, obviously, weather's weather. There's nothing you can do about it. It is an island. If you are foggy, if it is windy, if it is whatever, then that's the same everywhere. But when you're relying on one plane and all that kind of thing, it's a nightmare. It really is. And I think until those things have been sorted and sorted properly, it's going to hold the island back,
Yeah.
not just housing, with everything.
I mean, I can remember James many years ago, Alderney week, Southampton to Alderney, 13, 1-3 flights in a
Hmm.
day. Now you're
Yeah,
lucky
well,
to
I
get,
remember coming out once,
yeah.
and we were going to come out with 6 people.
Mm,
There was no room via the Aurigny website or whatever you did back then, ringing them up, and they
yeah.
said, "We'll come back to you if there's 6 of you. We'll put on a flight, and that kind of thing." And that just isn't going to happen
No,
anymore.
no.
And whilst I must admit I quite like the bigger planes, those little ones were far more reliable, far more resilient. Um, and as you said, you had more flights that you could use. And I mean, I am a bit of an aviation geek, and these otters are a fantastic plane, and they land all over the world on beaches and riverbeds and all that kind of thing. Why they can't use your grass runways, I have absolutely no idea.
I mean, that is so obvious, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I was there when did I see you? Like, I saw you like,
A
last
couple of
week,
weeks
didn't
ago,
I?
yeah, 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 yeah,
And I was stuck for 24 hours because of the crosswinds. And
yeah.
look, it's wet and all that down. I get that it's January, February time, and you're going to have those issues. But that's island life. But if you were wanting somebody to come and move to the island and they need to get off on a regular basis,
Yeah.
it's going to be in the back of anybody's mind. Forget weather, but everything else that goes with it, I think that would hold a lot of people back from saying if they need to get to a meeting in the city, or to another airport to connect somewhere else, like a lot of these wealthy people do,
Yeah.
then if they're beholden on the fact that there's enough crew to take off, I think that's wrong personally.
Yeah.
And
Couldn't agree
until
more.
that is and until that changes, and we've all been having the same discussions for the last, well, however many years, I don't see any end to it, if I'm honest with you.
No, I couldn't agree more. And I think hopefully we have some of our politicians watch the show, and hopefully they'll take that on board and press the case with Guernsey to sort things out. Anyway, let's get actually now on to what's on offer on Alderney property wise. What do you see the starting point as for a basic flat or something like that?
Well, if I just take my own uh, guys there,
Yeah,
I think the cheapest property we have on our books as of today is £185,000.
right.
And the most expensive we have on our books at this moment in time is 3.25 million.
Yeah.
So we have quite a wide range. So there is something for everybody, I suppose. And like any market, there's nothing special about the place, other than the fact it's a very special place. But a market works in exactly the same way, be it here, be it there, be it here, be it anywhere. You have got, especially in Alderney, there is something, I think, to suit most budgets nowadays.
When Channel Television did a bit of a piece a few weeks ago, they said that the average house price on Alderney was £300,000. That's wrong, isn't it?
I think the fact, I mean, you could go through and work it out, and I have done it in the past, but you get these anomalies, that all of a sudden, you've got these average houses and all that kind of thing. Then all of a sudden, a massive one,
Yeah,
pops in. I wouldn't think
losing you a
if
bit.
we were, um, it's probably not a million miles away from that. There's all different types of
Mm,
property values.
yeah.
So the average, it depends on whatever day. It is. I think it's not a million miles wrong. That.
Okay, you're the professional. I take your word for it.
Mm.
Looking at your situation with the office over here, um, there appear to be lots and lots of properties either over a million or just under a million. I noticed 12 on your books over a million.
Mm.
It's very difficult to see how they're going to sell, isn't it?
I have for a long time, I suppose, worried about the market there, in the fact that it is like a market anywhere. It's its own little bubble, and
Yeah,
it always seems to be that properties go on for whatever level, hang around for forever, and then sell for a completely different price that it went on the market for. And that uncertainty, I don't think, is particularly healthy within a market. And I'm hugely relieved that house price data is being advertised now, so that people can make a decision.
yeah.
And I would totally agree with you. There are quite a lot of probably overpriced properties on the books at this moment in time. Now, if I'm proven wrong that somebody's going to come in and pay that kind of money for everything, then great. But I think people have got to have a little bit of realistic thought as to what actually is going on within that market. And there are certainly some fantastically lovely houses that are certainly over £1 million. In fact, we put one to bed this weekend at well over £1 million. So there is the appetite for it. And some houses are certainly that kind of level. What's probably wrong is that there's not the lower end stuff to prop it all up.
The other thing, James, is how many of those houses on your books actually took note of your valuation Or did the vendor say, oh, it's worth a lot more than that? Put it on at X. That happens,
Um,
doesn't it?
Very good question, and I'll be honest with you. I'm not entirely sure on that, but our job as an agent is often to manage people's expectations.
Yeah,
Okay, now here in the UK, where I'm sitting in front of you now, if we haven't had offers on a property within 4 or 5 weeks, the property is probably too much money.
yeah,
Um, and I think I mean, obviously, it's completely different where you guys are, but there is a market, and if you've got to listen to, you obviously need the properties on the books to sell, and I get that.
sure.
My own personal view is, should we be putting properties on the market that we know are hugely overvalued? My own personal thing is no, because it's a waste of our time, effort, and money, because we know they're not going to sell for that. We'll obviously always try and get the best possible price for everybody. But sometimes you do have to manage people's expectations. And if you've been on the market for years and years, well,
Pretty obvious,
the
isn't it?
chances are you're not going to get what you want. You want
Yeah,
one
yeah,
thing. I'm hugely looking forward to, and I'm looking forward to publishing this. We've always promoted our properties on a big website called Rightmove, which
yeah.
is the biggest UK web portal. When we came onto the island, 5 years ago, we put all our properties on Rightmove, and we got a lot of feedback from that. I now see that the other agent is doing exactly the same, and I'm not surprised, because the figures of the amount of traffic through that website is huge, and you need to do what's best for your clients. Now, what is fantastic about that website is that it will give me, it won't give the general public, but because I subscribe to it, it will give me all the information as to what properties started their marketing at
Mm.
and what they've sold for, because we can then go on to price data. And I'm looking forward to publishing that at the end of the year as to the percentage as to what they're going on for and what they're selling for. And I think that's going to be hugely interesting for the market across there, because across here in my offices here, we're probably getting about 95-ish% value, end value to what they're going on the market for. And when the market was fantastic, we were over 100%. I think it's going to be a lot lower when I work that out after a year of everybody being on that side. So
It's
yes,
right.
it's interesting to see.
It's right move very expensive.
Hugely,
Yeah,
hugely, yeah. I think my right move spend last year was about 60-odd thousand pounds. It is.
really.
I
Yeah,
hate it. I mean, don't get me wrong; it's a very good tool, but I hate it with a passion.
yeah. But
When the right move,
think of
yeah,
all the postage you're saving on.
yeah. I laugh with the rep that comes round. That I say they've got the easiest job in the world. They just come in and say the
Yeah,
prices are going up, and there's very little that we can do it for. And as a surveyor, I pay to get that information back, because it gives me everything, whatever's going on in the market. It's very useful, but it's a very good tool. We're also on another web portal called On the Market, which is which has just been bought out by a huge American conglomerate, which is the biggest property web portal in the world, and I'm hoping that that's going to take off as well.
yeah. Interesting stuff.
That's it.
I mean, I remember the days when estate agents would do the particulars on a Romeo or an offset litho, mail it out to the people, probably not get much of a response, and then put the whole thing in the back of the filing cabinet and hope somebody actually walked through the door. It's
Well,
no
yeah. I mean,
doubt. Yeah.
I mean, we've been trading as a company here since 1991, and I remember as a kid coming in on a Saturday morning to help my father out, and I'd be sticking photographs on the front of particulars,
Yes. Yeah.
to mail out. The property paper came out on a Friday, and you were busy on Saturday with everybody wanting particulars mailed out. Those days are gone and they're never
Yeah.
going to come back. But I
No.
do think the web portal has killed a little bit of proper agency off, in the fact that if you're not careful, you'll be, stick a property on a website and expect the phone to ring. I still think there's a lot more work that needs to go in. If you are a decent agent, you should have people on your books that are looking and do the deals still. And
Yeah,
that's the
yeah,
bit I
yeah.
still enjoy.
Yeah, yeah. The phone is still a useful tool in terms of communication to potential purchasers.
Oh, hugely, yeah,
Yeah,
and having a mobile phone unfortunately means that you can't leave the office, isn't it? I was talking to somebody with Monday morning now. I was talking to somebody about a rental property that they want selling, yesterday morning. So
yeah,
it's
yeah.
got its downsides, but it definitely got its upsides.
Okay, let's get back to Alderney and talking
Yes,
about leasehold properties. It's a bit of a problem with getting finance on those at the
yeah.
moment. Can you tell us why?
Do you know, it is beyond me, Tony. This is the banks across there will not lend on leasehold properties. Okay, I think it's all going back to feudal system.
Yeah,
They lend on leasehold properties in the UK, and I think it's a real shame, because leasehold isn't going to go away. All right, if you certainly not quickly anyway.
no,
There are changes afoot here, but there, I think it would really help locals and younger locals get on the property market if the banks across there allowed mortgages to take place on leasehold properties. And until they do, I think a lot of the younger people are going to struggle to get on any kind of property ladder, because inevitably flats are a lot cheaper than houses. And
yeah,
like I
sure.
said, we got £185,000 is our lowest priced flat at this moment in time. But you've got to have the cash to buy it, or a wealthy parent, or this, that, and the other. And I must admit, I do think that is a huge problem um, for people getting on. And until that changes, I can't see that
So
ever.
how do they change it? Do they change the legislation, which
I
makes it?
think banks have got to look at their lending criteria. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm a mortgage valuer by trade as well, and I do a lot of mortgage valuation. And banks are very cautious with their lending often. And I suppose it's for the Channel Island banks to actually come together and actually
yeah,
change their lending criteria, in my opinion.
yeah.
And that might be something that the states want to look at a little bit more, with trying to solve the problem of first time buyers or low income households and all that kind of thing, who want to buy their own property and don't want to rent, because it could be seen as a complete waste of money renting. And I would probably agree with that in some instances. So I think it needs to be, look, the state's going to the banks and saying, how can
Yeah.
we sort this out, really?
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, it's government to approach the banks, and as you say, see what can be done about it. Because
I
I
think
mean, I think it's one of those sort of situations where it wouldn't take much to sort itself out.
No, it just needs somebody to say, come on, it's as long as the leases are all
Yeah,
fine,
yeah,
that
yeah,
shouldn't be an issue.
yeah. So if necessary, agree a standard type of lease.
Potentially, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. As long as it's got a decent, I mean, once you get below 75 years
you got a problem.
unexpired
Yeah,
here, they don't want to know.
yeah.
But yeah, let's. It wouldn't take a lot to change the strategy there, in my opinion.
Right. Let's get on to energy performance certificates, which once again are not obligatory here, but not a bad thing if you're thinking about trying to sell a property at some later stage. What's your view on that?
Right. I've always said that the day that people start buying properties based on their energy efficiency is probably the day I'm going to pack up, Tony, if I'm honest with you. And I love older properties, and they're never going to be energy efficient. And we've
Right.
had EPCs across here for decades now. And actually, I looked at trying to do an EPC on Alderney, and I rang up the assessment centre because I was an EPC assessor. I was one of the first to qualify back in the day, and I've let it lapse now. I don't do that. I'm a chartered surveyor. I do building surveys and stuff
Yeah.
like that, but I don't do EPCs. And I thought, well, I'll get my training back and I'll start doing EPCs on Alderney because I thought it would be a good idea. The computer says no. I'm afraid there, Tony. I rang them up. I asked the question, could I do them? And the software that is here in the UK will not allow for any EPCs to be done in the Channel Islands. So at this moment in time, they're a no-no. But I do think in order to get the housing stock in a better, more energy efficient manner, you're going to have to look at something like that.
Mm.
And again, it's the states and the Channel Islands as a whole. I know there are moves afoot to make changes, particularly in the rental sector. But again, I don't think on Alderney anybody's going to be. If someone's buying a holiday home, they're not going to worry about its energy performance. But it probably is something that homeowners should take a little bit more interest in. Because they do tell you some good stuff, really.
Yeah. Now, one thing that always seems to be sadly lacking here when people buy a property is getting somebody to do a proper survey on the place. That's pretty important, isn't it?
Right, I'm a chartered surveyor, qualified 25 years this year, all right, and I've been doing surveys and valuations on residential properties all of that time. All right, I am absolutely amazed that people come across to Alderney paying big money often for houses and not have a surveyor look at them. Now, if they've got the money that they then move in and find it's got galloping dry rot, then good luck to them. All right. But I would always say that it's most unwise progressing with a sale without having somebody, look
Yeah,
round
yeah,
for a reason. I mean, you're only buying my PI insurance effectively, but
yeah,
you know, if and look, there are surveyors in Guernsey. I've surveyed properties on Alderney a few times now, and I'm quite happy to. But I can't obviously do the ones we're selling ourselves. But I am amazed how many people just buy on the off chance that everything should be okay. And I mean, we've saved people hundreds of thousands of pounds in the past on suggesting they buy it at maybe a different value, or the roof's wrong and all that kind of thing, because you looking at a property for yourself
yeah.
is completely different from having a professional surveyor going round and looking at it. And we bought a house many years ago with my late father, and we were looking around a property on High Street for ourselves, thinking, oh, look, we can have the barbecue there, and this can go this, that, and the other. We completed on the sale, and I remember my dad ringing me up and saying, "You're a crap surveyor, you are. It's got a flat roof." And of course, we weren't looking at it.
No.
And he was a surveyor with far more experience than I was. And no, we hadn't picked up that the lion's share of this property had a massive flat roof, because we were looking at it with completely different eyes. We were looking
Yeah.
at it for ourselves to live in. And the first thing we would have seen as a surveyor is you look up and blimey, it's got a flat roof and all that kind of thing. So I'm amazed they don't get done as often as they do. Don't get me wrong, they do get done, but
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
on the level I think they should.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, one thing I wanted to talk to you about as a surveyor is the question of insurance, sums insured. Now, quite honestly, with the sort of rate per square foot rebuild over here, the actual sum insured on the insurance is going to be probably considerably in excess of the actual value, isn't it?
Yeah, they have no correlation at all. Okay. And the way I often explain, because I do rebuild valuations, and they are a little bit different there, all right, because obviously everything got to get onto a boat and a builder and all that kind of thing. So you can give a fairly well-reasoned idea as to how much something should be insured for. And we subscribe to the BCIS insurance valuation scheme that we can do things out there. And the way I explain it normally to people is if you were building a house, let's say a three-bedroom semi in Mayfair, a three-bedroom semi-detached house in the back end of, I don't know, Liverpool,
Yeah.
or on Alderney. In the UK, the house building the house or rebuilding the house in London is probably not a huge difference to Liverpool, but the values would be completely different. Now add on to that, local labour, getting the stuff out there. There would be a case, I would assume most of the properties, the second-hand values or market values would probably be less than the rebuild on a lot of the properties
Yeah,
there.
yeah. So,
But and that is something that again we can do. And sometimes if you haven't had your rebuild costs updated, you can find that your premiums are completely wrong, to lower and higher. I've done ones where they're so overinsured, it's ridiculous, and you can bring premiums down. But the worst way would be underinsured, because heaven forbid, if something was to go wrong and the house burns down or what have you, you need to be insured correctly to be able to rebuild it. And having that assessed on a fairly regular basis, I think would be certainly something that should be looked at. I would have thought at least every 5 years.
yeah. And I suppose from your point of view, once you do the initial inspection, you can refer back to your notes in 5 years' time and just look at property costs at that time. You don't
Yeah, you'd run
necessarily
it
have to
through
come
again. I
along
mean,
again.
yes, but it's certainly something that can be
Yeah,
done. Yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
yeah. Affordable housing, we don't seem to have got that too right over here, particularly in terms of planning applications, which tend to be one-offs, and the states don't seem to sort of allocate land for building, a fair number of houses on. What's your view on that?
Affordable housing is a very hot topic everywhere. All right, we need more housing. In Alderney, you have a housing issue in the fact that there is not enough property to rent, and in my opinion, there is not enough entry level housing, affordable
Yeah,
housing,
yeah,
that should be there for local people. Now, the affordable system in the UK is hugely important in the fact that the planning laws were changed that meant that if development was going ahead, a certain amount of that development had to be on an affordable level. And I mean, back a cigarette packet, anything over 9 properties, you need to put some element of affordable on the site or do an off-site contribution. And unfortunately, that has a hugely negative impact on land values, because
yeah,
if you've got a field that you can fit, I don't know, let's say 5 properties on, and they said, well, actually, one of those has got to be affordable, the land value is lower. So, landowners don't like it. There's that and the other. But I do think there needs to be a shake-up on Alderney to at least start trying for them to be seen to be looking like they're trying to help their local people that can't afford to stay there, and having some affordable rental element that no outsider can touch. You've got to be living there. You've got to have family there. You've got to have proper connections there. Has got to be healthy for the sustainability of local people. And without it, I just think it's. I mean, as a land agent, you don't
Yeah.
like it. It's a pain in the neck because you're not getting the most for your landowner. But with proper realistic hat on, it's got to be there, and I don't think there's enough. I think the states have got to give some land to allow affordable housing. And I mean, I've put things to them in the past, and they just did not want to know. And I have no idea why not. I find that very, very, very strange.
I mean, it's to my mind, it's obvious that you rebuild white gates, and
Well,
also,
I said, I must admit, I rang up somebody from this, I forget his name now. I said, look, why
yeah,
don't you just give that to, let's have a long lease on that. Let's give it a long lease. If you don't want to give the land away, let's have a really long lease. And let's get some private finance to build some houses
yeah,
of decent quality houses that you had to have local connections, and we would rent them out at affordable rents forever.
yeah.
And didn't want to know. And I think you've got the land there. It's had building on it. It may be not where they want to be. That's the only thing. It may be that you need to create some land somewhere, not create land, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Using
Allocate
land
it. Yeah.
elsewhere.
Yeah.
But that is certainly one part of the island that you could create some housing very simply.
Mm.
And I don't know why they don't look at the private finance to provide that. But still, as I said, I'm not local,
No.
and I
It's
mean that
okay.
in the
It's
nicest
okay.
possible way.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love the place with a passion. I would move there tomorrow, and I hope that we can continue to trade there long into the future, because I do love the place, and there's a lot to be done there. But I'm certainly not going to jump into local politics and start saying this is. I've got ideas. Areas of what has gone on in the UK could be dropped in there very, very simply, but it needs people to smash a few heads together to get it done.
Yeah. But I mean, the fact of the matter is, we've seen development recently where it's been one-offs in a fairly large area that could have perhaps been allocated to affordable housing. But there you go. Anyway,
Mm.
Mr. Hawkesford, I'm sorry to have to say we're about run out of time. So I've really enjoyed our chat.
Yeah, no, thank you very much indeed, and
That's a
no, it's
pleasure.
been good to speak to you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
good to see you.
it's nice to see sunny Leamington Spa out of the back of your window.
Yeah, well, I prefer to see sunny Alderney any day of the week, but one day.
Yeah. I'm sure it will. Anyway, many thanks, James. Really
Take
appreciate your
care.
time. Take care.
See you now.
Bye.
Bye bye.